Hey there guys, welcome back to the Muse of Maverick channel. Maverick here with another episode of Listeners. So, last episode was Pink Floyd inspired, right? We got references to Goodbye Blue Sky, we got references to The Wall, and there were also some various other references strewn here and throughout, as is typical of this series so far. Now, unfortunately, that's where the references stopped. We didn't really get any sort of similarities or whatnot to the actual music being used within the episode, which is kind of a bummer, honestly. But, well, we'll see in this one, shall we? And at the end of the last episode, it seemed that Mew and Echo got their next destination already, Londinium, which throughout everything that we've seen so far seems to be this one place or nation or whatever you want to call it that is really taking the we are at war with the earless very seriously, right? So in stark contrast to the gnomes that we just saw in the last episode who want to coexist peacefully with the earless. So let's get into it and hear their side of the story. Alright, let's begin in 3, 2, 1, play. Alright. So instantly we're getting more of a war-torn scene. Well, if this is Londinium, London was at a point the center of the world. The British Empire and all that. Air raids. So, including the references from last episode to the air raids, definitely getting a very World War II, Battle of Britain kind of vibe here. Oh. Damn. This actually looks like a mecha anime now. With this dude. Oh? Is that Jimmy Stonefree? Well, if that's Jimmy Stonefree, then this is probably a flashback. And so we're probably going to have Echo and Mew make contact with the grown-up version of this kid. Alright. You know, originally when I started this series, I thought they were going to be making some kind of deeper meaning in regards to the absence of music and whatnot, right? In the synopsis of this show, it was actually shown that music has ceased to exist in this world. So I thought the earless and the players and whatnot were metaphors for things a little bit how should I put it? Like, I thought it was going to have a deeper philosophical meaning behind it. And don't get me wrong, it still could. It's just that the way that the series has been presented so far uh, is more leaning towards the nonsensical side, to be honest. Alright. Day of Rage. It doesn't ring a bell to me. Ah. And are these two the ones at the very beginning of the episode? The two boys? 10 years? Yeah, how are you? Okay. Oh, I wasn't expecting her to show up. What was her name again? Ho? No, Ho was the one who she was working with, right? She's Niru. Near. Lied. Richie. Lied and Richie. Yeah, this is Londinium. Huh. I totally wasn't expecting her to actually be appearing once again so soon. And if you listen to the background music, it's once again the sort of Smells Like Teen Spirit inspired theme. I guess that is basically her motif, her theme song, if you will. So is she gonna team up with this guy instead? Player and engineer? Well, getting rejected without even saying anything. Yeah, I'm certainly very militaristic. This Londinium patrol or whatnot. Ah. Hmm? I mean, big bro. She's a girl, you know. I don't know how I think about this. Even though the shop owner was definitely had a bad attitude, these two were slacking off on the job, right? And she's a girl. Mm, I guess it kind of makes sense that they're connecting together because Nier was also sort of in this rebellious, I do what I want phase. It seems that Light and Richie are similar as well. Oh, is that your mom? Hmm. Hmm. Huh. So is he really trying to become an engineer and team up with Nier? Dude, just be grateful you got somewhere to stay and someone to feed you. For what? Like you're just gonna give that equipment to her? What? I don't get this. They're acting like it's they're acting like it's a favor from her for her to pilot it. But doesn't she just get free equipment? Am I missing something here? Oh, we're continuing with her. Alright. I thought we were going to transition into Echo and Mu's perspective. What? What's the end goal to all this? I don't. What? Oh, and stealing from them as well? I don't know. I'm really getting the sense that these are just two hooligans from the hood or something. Uh, when she's saying stay back, I don't think that means still standing on top of the equipment. Well, at least didn't explode. That's a good thing. My question exactly. Aren't they protecting the city though? Well, aren't you edgy? I don't know, is this supposed to be like a case of misguided teens or something? And then, eventually getting them to come around? I mean, I'm not misunderstanding things, right? The Londonian Patrol is supposed to be, helping to fight against the Earless. And indeed, Lyde and Richie's parents were killed by the Earless. So, what? Ooh. Okay, another air raid, I'm guessing? Okay. Apparently, it can turn into a huge Earless. Oh. Yeah. Definitely reminds me a lot of the Battle of Britain, which was basically the repeated Nazi bombing of England. London in particular. Is that the Queen? Wait, what? What? I don't. I. Yeah. Okay. So that's how you get a plug? Alright. What? Look at his eyes, though. I got a feeling these two are about to be killed. I don't know, I'm getting tons of death flags here. Are you gonna explode or something? Ooh. Kamikaze attack? Huh. Oh, wait. They survived? Alright. Hmm? Wait, Jimmy Stone free? Ooh. Now that was a very mecha scene. Mew? A Mew clone or something? Wait, what? Okay, so that other Mew killed these two? Alright, transition to those two? Fooling around? Oh no. I'm not. Huh? This was a weird episode through and through. Well, at least the ending is still as high quality as always. Trauma. Still being sang by Mew. I'm not really sure if this episode makes much sense. But, well. Mm. We just saw a shot of them as young boys, actually. Well, alright. See you guys after this. Alrighty, so this was another pretty confusing and crazy episode all in all, although there were some interesting things and developments that came out of it. First of all, let's talk about the episode title because, as I mentioned before, every single episode is a reference in some way to a prior musical work or an artist group, particularly rock bands, so on and so forth. For this particular episode, however, it's kind of bucking the trend. The translation here is Day of Wrath, right? But I looked looked up the original words in Japanese, and apparently it's actually directly referring to a Latin poem slash chant by the name of Dies Irae. Dies Irae. Like, I mean, it's in Latin, right? So I'm not entirely sure how to completely pronounce it, but it's basically a Latin chant, if you will, mainly used in requiems, and it's dealing with the subject matter of the Last Judgment. So when God is apparently supposed to descend, the second coming of Jesus Christ and whatnot, and people are being judged whether they can go to heaven or to hell, that entire thing. A staple of Abrahamic religions such as Christianity, Judaism, Islam as well, I'm guessing. But yeah, so it's quite off the beaten path from what we've been experiencing so far, with references to many well-known bands and so on and so forth. And I took a list. I went back and actually listened to Dies Irae a little bit. The chant, and it's basically what a chant is. You can easily imagine like a Roman Catholic sort of church and whatnot, and with no music, but a bunch of like maybe 10 dudes or so chanting and hymning at the same time. Not really music, if you will, but a very very holy kind of setting, and in some ways you can also even interpret it as a bit ominous, right? Because that's how it's the atmosphere of this thing. It's very solemn. It's very well, it's ominous in a way. Let's put it this way. So if they really were trying to refer to this, I do wish that they could have gone the extra mile, similar to last episode where I said if you're going to refer to Pink Floyd, why not actually combine their music a bit better? Same thing here. For instance, in this episode we had this mysterious Londonian patrol being controlled by this mysterious man in the tower, right? Well, you could have easily made a situation where you turned this man in the tower to being this very ominous being, right? Similar to sort of like an Eye of Sauron kind of situation. Like he's in this high tower, he's overlooking everything, he's raining out judgment, especially combined with I'm assuming that the man in the tower is the guy in charge of the Londonian patrols, and probably also in charge of initiating, what was the operation called again? Operation Godfather, right? Where they literally killed their own citizens and destroyed parts of their own city, right? Obviously a no-no. So they could have easily used these kinds of things to prop up this character and really put a bit more feeling into it, instead of just, so this episode title is Day of Wrath, and so what? Right? So a missed opportunity, if you will. And speaking of the tower and all that, so one thing we also did manage to see is this fake Mew, right? Or I guess you could say, I personally, my theory right now is that is actually a clone of Mew, and by the presence of this fake Mew, I think we can have some further theories as to who Mew actually is and how it relates to the whole story, right? So from the last episode and from episodes past, it was hinted that Mew is related with Jimmy Stonefree, this legendary player, right? And in the last episode, it was sort of hinting at Mew being the sister of Jimmy Stonefree. And so I think that is still indeed possible. This fake Mew, however, could easily be a clone of this current Mew. And don't forget, in the very first episode, Mew was basically abandoned out in the middle of nowhere, right? With her memories, with her losing her memories, so on and so forth. So I could easily find a situation where perhaps this man in tower, or these sort of sinister forces were trying to control Jimmy Stonefree, control their powers, or control Mew, who is of the same heritage as well. Maybe in getting into a situation where Mew is not very cooperative, so they just clone her and then they dispose of Mew. It could easily be that kind of situation, or if you want to get even even more crazy and whatnot, maybe Mew is actually a clone of Jimmy Stonefree, and this other Mew is basically the second generation of this clone, or so on and so forth, right? Like maybe, for instance, Mew, the Mew that we know of, maybe she gained a conscience and was too good-natured, maybe too similar to the original Jimmy Stonefree to be controlled, and so they disposed of her and made another clone, something like that. Or indeed, perhaps even Jimmy Stonefree himself is actually a sort of biological weapon being devised by by this mysterious organization in order to utilize their powers against the earless, and maybe even for more nefarious purposes, right? So lots of these kinds of ideas floating around, which we'll certainly explore more in the upcoming episodes. Now, let's talk a little about Lyde and Richie here, because honestly, I feel like this episode was not all that enjoyable, and partially because of these two characters who I don't know, I really can't sympathize with them all that much, even though they did die in the end, right? So I think I kind of get what they were trying to do here. They're trying to similar to Nier's situation, right? Very rebellious teens and whatnot, going against authority, but at still making them to be good people, good boys, and just wanting to have their place in the world, and that general kind of stuff, right? I don't feel like they did a particularly good job of establishing these two, however. Indeed, throughout the entire episode, my thinking of these two were basically that these were no good hooligans that didn't, you know, I mean, when you make these kind of rough characters, right? Like maybe a good example of this would be Tom Sawyer and Huckleberry Finn, right? These mischievous boys who at the core are still good boys who are good natured and very kind and wanting to do the right thing, right? Even though they do get on people's nerves and break the rules a little bit here and there. However, we weren't really shown much of that in terms of Lyde and Richie. In fact, what mostly drove them was still personal factors, personal motivation, right? It's not a case where they want to because they can't stand the London Patrol killing their own people and whatnot, which, by the way, is also kind of out there as well. But it's more that they just want to prove themselves and basically say, I'm not useless, I have worth and all that. So I just feel like they didn't really establish their characters well enough for us to care or even like them. They're definitely, to me, they're not really likable. Like the scene with them and the shop owner. So yeah, I can get that the shop owner might have a bad attitude and he's very money hungry, if you will. But still, without actually establishing much of that first and their prior relation to this, it seemed more like Lyde was just stealing from him and then neglecting his own responsibilities, and Richie wasn't too far off from that either. So how are we supposed to sympathize with these two, right? If we don't see them in actually a good light, if the anime doesn't portray them in a good light, how are we supposed to actually like these two characters? So at the end of the day, I wasn't all that enthusiastic even towards their sacrifice as well. Which, by the way, the other thing that I was going to also comment on was the fact that they were seemingly having trouble accepting the authority of the London Patrol, even though the London Patrol is supposed to be the guardians of the city and whatnot, and fighting off the earless. Now, of course, later on, it is shown that, hey, the London Patrol is also doing some pretty bad things as well. I mean, no matter how you spin it, you could say that it's a necessary evil and all that. I really don't think there's any situation which justifies killing off your own people. I could maybe see forcefully evacuating them from from an area and then destroying the entire area, right? It's such sort of a scorched earth tactic. Even though I'm not really sure how that relates with the Earless Queen, we'll just assume it is a working strategy. Then maybe, then still, I could get why the people would be kind of angry, but at the same time, I would still be on the Londonian Patrol side, because at the end of the day, they're still trying to do their job in protecting the city, right? However, with the events that were shown in this episode, I can't really blame the people for wanting to rise up and revolt against the Londonian Patrol, right? It's definitely a case where it seems the rights of people and whatnot are being trampled in the name of safety and protection and for the good of the people and all that, and that is not okay. Yeah, without that I think that would have been another negative against Lyde and Richie as well. So, one thing that did seem kind of interesting to me is the development of the player plug. So apparently anybody can develop that in a way. Okay, that was cool. Maybe just keep a note on that. The part where they actually went and fought against the Earless, right? I felt like that was pretty obvious that those two were going to die. If you look at Light's bloodshot eyes and whatnot, it's definitely not a normal kind of situation. You know, everything about it is just streaming bad news, and they're about to get themselves killed. They went out in a way that I didn't expect, though. I thought they were either going to, one, be on the verge of defeating the Earless, but then ultimately getting maybe a bit too complacent and then being counterattacked and dying that way, or they were going to go full Independence Day and suicide into this thing and cause a huge explosion, and that would be the end of that, and they would be hailed as martyrs, as heroes, so on and so forth, right? But unfortunately, none of that happened. They punctured through, but then they were actually taken out by this fake Mew with her laser-powered thingamajig, right? Which, by the way, I got two problems with this. One is, I feel like they could... I could totally see why they want to do this. They wanted to create some seeds of discord within Mew's heart. Sorry, not Mew's heart. Within Nier's heart. And this will potentially, at least I hope, actually have some further on consequences later down the road once Nier confronts Mew again, and without understanding the entire situation. I guess they're trying to set up this sort of situation in the future. However, even if they did want to do this kind of thing, I feel like there were better ways to do it, such as actually have Light and Richly successfully sacrifice themselves and whatnot, and then maybe have this Mew and this other guy in the tower maybe trample over all their accomplishments and whatnot and say, it's just two useless boys, throwing away their lives, they're worthless, who cares about them anyways, right? And for that to enrage Nier. That could work as well, right? We don't really need to see this fake Mew actually for basically I wish at least Light and Richie could have their time to shine, right? They actually accomplished something, and that would be in a way a redemption of their character as well. But like I said, if you want us to like them, you need to put them in a good light, right? So either for their good deeds or for them to actually succeed in the end or whatnot, and that would be a good conclusion to everything. But instead, none of that was actually accomplished, and they died in vain without really accomplishing anything, right? And also, the second thing that I want to talk about that scene is that if you are going to throw out this super cool super weapon, right, show us the explosions! Like, I've already mentioned from episode 2 or 3, I think, that the story for this is mostly nonsensical, and I'm mostly watching this for the music, and because the action scenes, I still want to see the mechs fighting against each other, and it's still a pretty interesting world overall, right? And seeing all these various different characters and all representing different kinds of attitudes or ideologies or beliefs and so on and so forth. But even if that is so, then when you actually get to the action scenes, you gotta give us the good stuff. Like, sure, showing that this is a super weapon or whatnot, that's one thing. Show us the explosions, right? Show us the beam ripping through the entire Earless, and even ripping through Light and Richie and whatnot, and basically let it have the impact of a super weapon, is what I'm saying here. And I feel like that was, once again, a missed opportunity. So lots of missed opportunities in this particular episode. But yeah, anyways, so it seems from the preview that we are going to be going back to Mew and Echo in the next episode, and I think they are actually going to be meeting up with the man in the tower as well, so looking forward to that. And I guess we just need to keep an eye out on Nier and what trouble she is going to cause in the future. So there we go, that was episode 7 of Listeners. Hope you guys enjoyed this. See you guys next time.